Okay, so I just wanted to quickly go over the fire button, show you one of my buttons, and the fire button is a really important one. This basically serves input to the weapon, so that the weapon knows that the fire button is being held down. So this button is in the player HUD. It'll be in the FPS player mobile, and you go into player HUD, and then the lower right screen, and you do this fire button right here. So it has my GUI implementation script. I'll talk about that later. Most of you probably already own NGUI or X2D, but for those that don't, I have written out my own class that actually builds a 3D GUI. Here is the fire button script. Okay, so it has button info. This is really important because this goes to the static class that does all the handling. You get to name it, name the button, and you get to choose the GUI cam. And typically it's right here. The GUI cam is inside the object. And then here's the fire button. So it has a mesh renderer, this mesh renderer, and it has a drag divider. So let's just take a look at the code really quick. So just like the other tutorial, we have the first thing is the FPS input.button class, and that's the class for all buttons. Any kind of button that you want, you have to inherit from this class so that it works with the code. These are the delegates. The delegates are assigned to 3 different methods. So you got on touch down, on touch hold, on touch up. And so we have these 3 methods implemented, and of course on enable and on disable. I'm just reviewing. It says add and remove. Watch the other video about building your own custom button. I review that a little bit thoroughly. Basically what happens with this script is when the person is playing the game, they like to push down the fire button. But the problem is that the camera doesn't move when your finger is on the fire button. So what I did was, not only does this weapon, does the fire button send a message to the weapons right here, FPS weapons dot get current weapon fire, and that is basically telling, that is a delegate right there, calling a method from that weapon class. And I will of course review that later as when I go over how to make your own weapon. But right now, this button, all it does is it sends a message to the weapon through this code, and it says to fire that weapon. So as the player, this is the update loop here. Let's go down to the on touchdown. So we have it when this button is pressed down, when the user pushes down on the screen, this is called. And this is called, when that happens, this button calls the fire method on the current weapon, whatever the current weapon might be. On touch hold, as the finger is still held down, what happens is not only is the fire button called, the fire on the weapon called, but I send an event. This is an event class. Input rotation vector. What that does is it sends an event that anybody that's listening to that event will get called this new vector. Okay? And what that does is, of course, it rotates the camera. Okay? So we're rotating the camera based on this event. So when the push and presses down on the fire button, it's not locked. It doesn't just lock the screen, because you can't touch the fire button and rotate the camera at the same time. So you can't touch here and rotate the camera. Your finger's on this or that, and usually their finger never leaves the D-pad. So as they press down the fire button, they can actually rotate the camera. This is, of course, a better player experience, and that works a whole lot better. But as you can see, the setup is really simple, and you know, this button basically works for just any kind of fire input. Later I'm going to talk about actual weapons. I'm going to make a sword. Alright, gotta go.